Next week, on the 29th of November, that Friday, we will be celebrating the Human Rights Defenders Awards, for 2024. We had Irungo Houghton here last week, and he was telling us about the previous awards and, how people have been picked and nominated. And it actually recognizes people across the country who are doing whatever they're doing in their communities to defend the rights of their fellow human beings. One of those people who is now being celebrated as well as a nominee for this year is Hussein Khalid, CEO of Vocal Africa. Good morning, Hussein.
Morning, Latiff. Happy to be here in the Situation Room and in the hot seat.
Karibu sana. Congratulations on the nomination.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It came as a surprise to me because I thought that, we were through those nominations and stuff like that. We've been in this business for many years and I didn't expect that. So, it's a good surprise, I guess.
Have you been nominated before?
For these awards?
Yes.
No, because until this year, I used to work for Haki Africa.
Yep.
And Haki Africa was one of the sponsors of the awards. So that meant that we were automatically disqualified because you can't award yourself. So Defenders Coalition, Haki Africa, and I think two others were the ones sponsoring these awards. So I left Haki Africa last year. So I guess perhaps that then leaves me open.
It's about time that you got recognized for everything that you've done before.
But of course, we've had other nominations in other, fields. So, at least it's something that you appreciate because it's okay to get nominated out there, but to get nominated at home, no prophet is accepted at home.
True.
So, or was never. No prophet was accepted at home. So to be here and to be nominated at home by, the defenders who are working with you, I guess it's a good thing. It's a good thing, yeah.
It's a good thing. It feels good to be recognized. City, why don't you recognize Hussein with the day's proverb?
I am going to recognize him thoroughly. Yes. Our proverbs for this week are from the Republic of Burundi. Okay. Hope does not have to be built on tangible things.
Hope does not have to be built on tangible things.
Definitely for Kenya, we have no option. We have to have that hope and we have nothing tangible to hold on to, I believe.
We have a country, we have a constitution, we have very many things. We've got rule of law.
We even have
Do we?
We've got institutions.
Do we?
We have a constitution. Are you saying no, we don't?
We have a constitution, but is the constitution being implemented? Inatekelezwa?
We have the constitution.
Actually, inatekelezwa. Wajua ukienda kinyume cha sheria, what you're doing is you are actually identifying with that law and you're authenticating its existence. Because in the absence of its existence, there would be nothing to go against.
That's true.
Yes.
That I agree.
That's true. So you've been in this field for many years, defending rights, defending the constitution, defending the rule of law.
Yes.
How many years?
I believe 15, 16 years now. I started off at Clarion, Center for Law and Research International, about 16 years ago. And then I moved to Muhuri. Well, I moved to Kenya Human Rights Commission first, briefly, before I joined Muhuri, Muslims for Human Rights in Mombasa, for a couple of years, then moved to Haki Africa, and now with Vocal Africa. So, good part of my life.
What led you down this path?
For me, I always say it's life experiences. I grew up in the mid-late 90s. I remember one day I was sent, we were living in the semi-slums of Nairobi, Ngara, Uko, chini Uko, So I schooled, my high school I did at Jamhuri High School. And one day, I think I was in Form 2 or Form 3, I think. I was sent to go buy meat. In Ngara, the nearest butchery is in town, Uko River Road and Kirinyaga Road. So you have to cross Zamani Hizo. Yes, exactly. So you have to cross the river and go up and, get to the butchery. So as I was doing that, apparently just around one of the corners, police had set up mtego yao. So anyone who was taking that corner, ulikuwa unachukuliwa, unawekwa hapo. No questions, nothing. You just picked, unawekwa hapo.
As long as you're passing there.
As long as you're passing there.
What time was it?
Around, I think, 10 or 11 in the morning.
Yes.
On a Saturday or Sunday, I don't remember, but it was a weekend because I was at home. Nikamwenda ununue nyama. And for us, nyama was a big thing because we were not well off. So nyama was like, naenda. Leo ni nyama, good, you know. So nikashikwa, tukaekwa hapo. There were quite a number of people, like almost 20, 30. After like 10, 15 minutes, tukaambiwa, twendeni. And we were taken through the sewers and, you know, and I was handcuffed. I had no idea what I had done. But wawili, you are handcuffed.
By police?
By police, yeah. And we were taken to Central Police Station. And then, sasa kufika huko, now you have to be sorted. The first thing they ask you is, where is your ID? Hauna ID, bas, hiyo ndio makosa sasa. They write there, what's your name? Hauna ID. And you have an ID, they ask you another question. You have that other, whatever they want, they ask you another until they find something, and then they book you in. So me, when they call me out...
That's an interesting statement,
yes.
Khalid. Until they find
something wrong. Not something wrong.
And they will find it.
They will find
it, yes. Definitely. I mean, you know.
What was yours?
So me, the first time they call me, wapi ID kijana? And I don't have an ID. I'm a student. Own ID? They didn't want even to hear. I'm a student, sina ID. Wapi ID ya shule? And it's a Saturday or a Sunday. I'm not working. I don't work with my school ID. Aya, weka huyu, an ID alien. You know? And that's it. Yeah. And I went in. I was like, really? My first time, Central Police Station. Well, now nishazoea because nimeingia huko mara nyingi sasa. But that was my first time.
Now it's a job requirement.
And those days, yeah, hakuna mobile, hakuna nini, late 90s, I think. Nothing. So now you're like, okay, what do you do? So I don't know, maybe my family thought kijana amekimbia na pesa ya nyama or what or nini, but sasa kufika usiku, wakasema no.
They started looking now.
This can't be right. So nikaanza kutafuta. I had to spend the night there. Until the next morning, they decided now, wacha tumtafute kwa police stations. Is when they came, na wakaambiwa nani? Hussein Khalid. Huyo kijana yuko hapa ni alien yeye. And they had to go get my school ID. And even with my school ID, ikabidi sasa wahongane. And that was our money probably for the whole week. Unajua we were not well off.
The nyama money, by the way, do you still have it in your pocket?
Pesa ya nyama, I had it.
Okay.
Yeah, but sasa nikaambiwa nipeane. They also had to give out more money for absolutely nothing. I had done nothing. I was walking to the butchery. You know, from that time, I was like, no, this can't be right. This can't be right. Now, the whole week, you know, we had to struggle, spend some nights even without food because pesa tumepeana, you know, and I really felt bad because I felt guilty, like I'm putting my family through this. But, you know, when you look at it, I had not done anything wrong. So for me, that's where it started, you know, hitting me.
So the bug bit you.
Things are not right in this country. How can we, you know, do this? And then my next experience, still, I think after high school now, a year or two, I was in Luthuli. So Luthuli Avenue. Sasa when you are still in school, you are waiting to join university, una hustle, unaenda Luthuli, someone wants a TV, unaenda unauliza huko TV ni how much, and then unaenda unamwambia you add your
commission.
Yeah, your commission. So you're in Luthuli Avenue huko Gaborone and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden tunasikia commotion. Oh, this jamaa sasa ameshikwa na polisi. And I remember that very clearly, so clearly, it's so fresh in my head as if it was yesterday. And then after kuangalia hivi vizuri, opposite the street, ukianza tu Luthuli, there are those lodgings hapo mwanzo kabla ya shop. Sasa jamaa amepiga magoti hivi, ameinua mkono, no on Luthuli Avenue. Luthuli sasa kama unaingia
on the side of river road.
No, Luthuli Avenue itself, ile side ya mativi kama unaenda chini huko to join River Road.
Okay.
River Road iko huko chini. Yeah.
Same where buses normally stop and so.
Buses ziko huko chini, exactly. Yeah. So this guy yuko hapo chini anaambia munisamee sijafanya kitu na nini, and then there are 2-3 cops just hovering around the guy. Wanaangalia hivi, wanaongeleshana nini. The guy now now it's creating a scene. People now are beginning to like watch what's happening. Na nini watu wanaanza kuangalia. And then just whispering wanam circle, and then just one guy just came in front of him. Twa, twa, twa. Shot him point blank with everyone, all of us looking. Evie too shot him. The first time.
Uniform or plain clothes?
They were in plain clothes. The first time I saw someone being shot dead.
For what?
First time. And the guy had surrendered. Ameinua mikono. Those cops walimzunguka wakiongea for almost 2 minutes before one of them decided, ta, ta, ta. The guy fell down. And Evie, everyone watching, just reached out kwa koti yake, akatoa another pistol, akaeka hapo.
Huh?
Yes. And then now they started telling people, tokeni hapa, shooting in the air.
Hold on,
disperse people.
Sorry. Who reached where? And
The guy who shot, the cop who shot the guy, reached out kwa koti yake, akatoa pistol, akaeka hapo chini. Another pistol, sio yenye ametumia, akaeka hapo chini. This is not something I was told, or this I saw with my own eyes. I couldn't believe it. I was like, really? Seriously?
This was the 1990s.
Late 90s, yeah, probably 99 or maybe 2000, sikumbuki. And, for me, that was just like the first time nimeona mtu was alive, breathing air, kabisa, and then Evo too, the guy is gone. So these experiences for me, I believe, are the ones that pushed me to say, no. This can't be happening. And we need change in this country. Particularly, I don't know why police are so quick, and since then and up to now, I think the difference is minimal. We still have regime policing. People who are working not because of the law. When I was arrested on Kenyatta Day last month, so why have you arrested me? Ni makosa gani nimefanya? Oh, no. We are waiting for directions. We're waiting for instructions. You are the OCS. You are the officer commanding station. You are waiting for instructions.
From whom?
From whom? Kama nimefanya makosa, there is the law. Charge me, tell me why you've arrested me. But you're following instructions, you're waiting for orders from above. Police no longer operate with the constitution. That's why I'm saying hakuna katiba, hakuna hizi vitu zote. Because if they were there, wangesema tumekushika under article this, the Public Order Act, umefanya hivi na hivi, but you wait for instructions. Charge him with unlawful assembly.
So when the instructions came, what was the charge?
Unlawful assembly, what was it? I think there were 4 charges. Nimezisahau. Moja yao ni unlawful assembly.
Mashujaa Day, right?
Mashujaa Day, we were to do it at Uhuru Park.
How were incitement?
No, there was no incitement. I don't remember, but ni hizi za mkutano, no permit, unlawful assembly, such kind of stuff.
You say it like you're so used to it now. So, Khalid, 30, my God, it's like, okay, what else can you add into this pot? So 30 odd years ago, things happened, obviously. And today, have you seen a difference in the way things are happening?
I think people say the more things change, the more things stay the same. But we must also take cognizance of the steps we've taken moving forward. Definitely, we're not where we were then. Definitely not. And I don't think it's because of the government or anything, but because the space has opened up. And we also have to appreciate what information the social medias and the journalists, what they have done. Nowadays, such things cannot happen without being someone recording it and someone calling for action. I think yesterday it was when we confirmed that the file for the officer who shot tear gas canister journalists has actually been finalized, but has not been forwarded to the ODPP. So we are pushing for that, so that action can be taken. If it was 20 years ago, you wouldn't have no idea what if there's even a file in the first place. So we've made huge steps forward, and this is what I always tell the Gen Zs, because they keep saying, "Oh, nyinyi the generation wale wengine." We are where we are because of the efforts of our grandfathers, the Pio Gama Pintos wenye waliuliwa, the first martyr, they say, in Kenya, you know, because they wanted to defend the country and they said no. The likes of anaitwa nani? Ni JK ama ni nani? JM. JM in the 70s. You know, we've had very many people who stood firmly. Kina Willy Mutunga, who were incarcerated for years. Kina Haminwa, you know, Kina Koigi, exile. They contributed all the way to 90s. Kina Orengo and Kivutha Kibwana, the NCEC team, Davinda Lamba, and you know, so where we are today, we are here because everyone, every generation played a role in opening up the civic space so that today now we can go out to the streets in thousands, you know, and say, reject the finance bill. Yeah. It's a collective effort. It's not one generation. Everyone contributed to it.
There was a big moment in August 2010 when we promulgated a new constitution. And in that constitution, there were several things that were, you know, world first.
Yep.
A Bill of Rights that is detailed on exactly what every Kenyan is entitled to.
Correct.
As a right enshrined in the constitution. Institutions that were created in the constitution that were supposed now to, in fact, even disperse power. Because we said we want to decentralize power.
Yep.
Let's have power via institutions and administration via institutions. We created those institutions to, you know, make sure that the human rights are defended. The Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights.
Correct.
We've got a Gender Inequality Commission.
Yes.
We've got the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. When it comes to government and how government is treating you, you've got the Commission on Administration Justice. All those are there. Have they worked?
I think to an extent, yes, they've worked. I mean, you don't want to throw the water out with the bucket. So, yes, we have made strides. I mean, if we don't appreciate, if we don't acknowledge what has been achieved, then we will not be true to ourselves. You can't compare Kenya and Uganda, just giving an example, or Tanzania, or any country within our region. You know, we are miles ahead. And I think, as you correctly put it, the Constitution of Kenya 2010 has been key to the successes we've enjoyed. Even when they violate our rights, we know that they're doing that. You know, before the Constitution, it was like, we know these are our rights, but they're not provided anywhere. So the Constitution, I think, I know Article 19.1, it says the Bill of Rights is an integral part of Kenya's democratic state and is the framework for social, economic, and cultural policies.
It's a framework.
It's the framework. It ought to be the framework for social, economic, and cultural policies. So any policy that we put out there, because the framers of the Constitution understood our history, where we came from, detention without trial, the Nyayo torture chambers, and all these things. So the Constitution then had Chapter 4, the Bill of Rights, as the biggest chapter. It's not about sovereignty. The biggest chapter is not about the presidency or the judiciary or the three arms of government. The biggest chapter in the Constitution is Chapter 4, the Bill of Rights, because we appreciate where we come from. And it's very clear, you know, clearly spelled out in 19.1 that it is the framework of all policies, social, economic, and cultural. But more importantly, Article 2 gives us the purpose why we need to recognize and protect human rights. And Article 19.2 says, the purpose of recognizing and protecting human rights and fundamental freedoms is to preserve the dignity of individuals and communities and to promote social justice and the realization of the potential of all human beings. So the Constitution is very clear why we must protect and promote human rights. And it tells us it is to preserve the dignity. Kiswahili tutasema ni utu. I am who I am because I have my rights, that I can enjoy my rights. That if you take away my rights, you know, you are making me equal to animals out there, that I don't deserve to be there. And to promote social justice. You know, it's not just justice in court and all that, but it's social justice. Why are we, you know, demolishing homes of individuals who are out there in Mathare? You know, why are we not protecting our communities? Why are we not, you know, living fairly the proceeds of development, why are they only shared by a certain few, you know? And more importantly, the realization of the potential of all human beings. That tomorrow I want to be a journalist.
Yep.
And I have the right to education. I have access to that. This university, I don't know, whatever is happening out there, it defeats the purpose, you know? So it is basically to ensure that everyone is able to realize their potential. So that is explicitly presented in the Constitution, and Kenyans need to know that.
Our guest this morning is one of the nominees for this year's Human Rights Defenders Awards. The award ceremony is taking place on the 29th of November. That's next week on Friday. Hussein Khalid, CEO of Vocal Africa, is our guest. Hussein, as we continue talking about, defending the Constitution, defending human rights, and people getting to know and to understand their rights as clearly spelled out in the Constitution, one of the things that you have to ask yourself, do people understand these things? It's been 14 years since this thing is in the letter of the Constitution, the supreme law of the land. Do the citizens know their rights?
I think in spirit, to a majority of Kenyans understand that they have rights. Social media has really helped. Of course, journalists have also come out very strongly in defense of the Constitution and doing massive public education on the Constitution and human rights in general. So I would say a large percentage of our population have a good understanding of human rights. For example, the right to demonstrate, which is under Article 37 of the Constitution of Kenya. They appreciate that, if they feel aggrieved, if they feel dissatisfied with the way things are, they have a right to air, their disappointment and share with others how they feel. But the letter, because there's the spirit and there's the letter. So in terms of the letter, I think we still have a lot to do. In terms of letting them know, for instance, it is this article, it is this chapter in the Constitution, or it is this particular law, the Public Order Act, that administers public activities. So, and that is not very, very worrying, because not everyone is a lawyer. You don't expect everyone to know every detail, but at least if they understand that they have these rights, then it's a good step. And we feel that where we have we've reached right now, we have that what we can call critical mass to push forward with the reforms in this country. And that's why we are now mobilizing as much as we can, telling people we need to come out, you need to stand forward, you need to say no to these excesses that are happening in government. And hopefully that will realize change in our times, maybe. And we can then a free and a democratic country that we all love, that is Kenya.
Who has the responsibility to create awareness among the people?
The responsibility falls on everyone, to be honest. There's no one individual person or one sector that, is charged with the responsibility of public education or maybe defending the Constitution. As a matter of fact, the Constitution in, I believe it's Article 3, Article 3 of the Constitution, it says, Article 3.1, every person has an obligation to respect, uphold, and defend the Constitution. Every person. It didn't say every state organ or every civil society actor or every journalist. It says every person. Actually, that means it even extends to beyond Kenyans, because you could have people in this country who are living with us, but they may not necessarily be Kenyans. Yeah. So it says every person has that obligation to respect, uphold, and defend the Constitution. And in defending the Constitution, the Constitution includes Chapter 4, the Bill of Rights, So we have a duty and an obligation that is given to us by the Constitution to make sure that we uphold human rights, that we uphold the tenets of the Constitution, and that we abide by it.
Okay. That is upholding and adhering to and observing. I'm asking about teaching. Who has the responsibility for civic education and civic awareness?
Well,
about the rights? Is there any institution, any organ?
Yeah, Latiff, that's what I'm saying. I mean, of course, you can point out and say there are certain individuals, there are certain sectors that have taken that responsibility of doing that. Civil society, for one. But, I mean, the media fraternity, you know, they have a responsibility. Like a program like this today at Spice FM, basically, we are letting people understand what the Constitution is about. And teaching people, not teaching actually, but sharing with people out there. So yes, there are certain sectors that perhaps might have more responsibility, but it's still each and every one of us who has that obligation to share information about the Constitution, to teach about the Constitution, and to make sure people are conforming to the principles and ideals of the Constitution. But yes, I agree. We have civil society, we have media, we have the state that also has the obligation. We have the ministries and others who are charged with, making sure things are okay within communities. So, yeah. But in a nutshell, it's all of us.
What can happen? Because, look, there's the Constitution, Khalid, and we talked about this maybe in the hour before you came. And looking at what, at the very least, let it be a guiding light in terms of what you're supposed to do, whether you're in a position of leadership, governance, or whether you are a citizen not involved in leadership.
Yes.
But at the very least, everybody is involved in nationhood, nation building, nation management, and maintenance.
Correct.
Everybody's involved in that.
Correct.
So the Constitution should then serve as a guiding light. Now, if we can imagine that you put that aside, which I don't believe that you should live in a nation aside of the supreme law.
Yes.
But if we can park that for a moment and talk about some of, or even look at some of the issues that we struggle with today, for which a lot of your work has been involved in, that there are still very many instances where folks operate outside of the provisions of the Constitution. And we can call it criminal, we can call it breaking the law, whatever it is. But that existence is outside of what the provision of the Constitution has mandated. So when we talk about abductions, when we talk about atrocities, when we talk about extrajudicial killings, when we talk about the disappearances of people, just let's talk about from the last 5 months, right? How is it that someone can govern, or people can govern over a nation, and these things are happening in broad daylight?
Exactly.
And we still say that there is an abiding by the Constitution? It befuddles me. I don't get it.
There's absolutely zero abiding by the Constitution. And you know what makes it even worse? The Constitution itself obligates the state to ensure human rights. You know, when you go to police or so, nyinyi watu wa human rights.
You guys.
Nyinyi watu wa human rights. And the Constitution has squarely placed that responsibility on the state. Article 21(1). It is a fundamental duty, not a duty, a fundamental duty of the state and every state organ. They could have said the state, because of course it includes, but for emphasis, so police wasiseme haikusema sisi, of the state and every state organ to observe, respect, protect, promote, and fulfill the rights and fundamental freedoms in the Bill of Rights. That is in the Constitution. It's not just a duty, it is a fundamental. They've been told you have 1,000 duties, and then there are those fundamental duties. So your fundamental duty as a state and every state organ is to defend the Bill of Rights. Sasa hapa hata haikusema the Constitution. It was specific to the Bill of Rights. So kama wewe ni polisi, hata kama wewe ni KBC, that's a state entity. Hata kama wewe ni ministry, wewe ni, I don't know, a government dispensary, it is a fundamental duty the Constitution has placed on you. So it really baffles, as you say it, when those state organs zenye zimekuwa obligated to actually defend the Bill of Rights, they are the ones that are outrightly violating those rights. Extrajudicial killings. You have a responsibility as IPOA, for example. Those pictures and videos, the good thing about Gen Zs is they don't just talk. They give you evidence. They even do the work for you. wanakuambia huyu ni fulani, hata mtoto wake anasoma shule hii, ako class 4, mwalimu wake anaitwa hivi, huyo mwalimu wake bwana yake ndio huyu. If you know, they give you everything, and not a single officer has been held to account. 61 lives lost in the minimum, at least the ones we were present. Tuko na postmortem reports zao, tuko na burial permits, the ones we can say for sure were killed. 61, but I'm sure there are many others. You know, people were afraid those days even to say mtu wangu ameuliwa kwa maandamano, because they were fearful the police will come for them. Nyinyi ni watu wa maandamano. So there are many others who are just buried. Muslims, for example, they need to bury immediately. Wanajua wakipiga report mwili itachukuliwa, sijui postmortem, sijui nini. So there are many others out there. But the president, the best he can say is, mimi sijui, kama mtu ako na lista nipatie. And you are the leader of the state. You are supposed to be a good example. Now you are the inspector general, acting inspector general, unaitwa kotini to come and explain a disappearance. 7 times you are being summoned. I mean, what kind of a government do we have in place that does not respect the constitution? And when people say we want change, you start saying, oh, sijui watu wetu, huyu reverend bishop ameongea hivi ni kabila hii, mbona hawakuongea? I mean, we have to change. We have to change this country. And these are the reasons why we are saying that change must come.
Are you saying that the change has not come?
The change has not yet fully been realized. That's what I say. If we were there, we wouldn't see these disappearances happening. I mean, we were just discussing Kenya is supposed to be a safe haven for people who are running away from. Sasa tunaambiwa Kiza Besigye probably was abducted. The Turkish guys, the Ethiopian Tekle Michael. You know, Kenyan forces, Kenyan security agencies are aiding rogue governments in arresting critics who are demanding change in their countries. People come to Kenya because they think, oh, look at these guys, they are protesting, you know, they are able to speak out, and, you know, our image is like up there internationally. And people are rushing here because they feel they will get the support, that they will have their comrades, that they will stand firmly together to bring change in Africa, in the world. And then our government goes and arrests, and then, I don't know, any PS justifies and says, oh, najua sijui ni serikali. A lot of crap. Seriously. I mean, we have to be serious about what's happening in this country. And we can't just keep quiet.
There's something that must be said along the same lines of what you're saying about where we are in terms of human rights compared to the other. The examples we compare ourselves with, we shouldn't actually, because they're bad examples.
Yeah, agreed.
The beauty, inadvertently, I hear I'm speaking, this is tongue in cheek here, the fact that you have this pushback from people in authority who seem doggedly determined to abrogate the constitution. Determined. It's like they will find ways around it, and even go to the point of even changing the laws within parliament. I think the thing that it does for us, at least in my mind, that is the best that could happen.
Yeah.
We see with clarity the sort of leaders we have. With clarity. There's no ifs and buts and pretenses. You see. That's number one.
Correct.
Number two, you also understand how the constitution works. How? Because you can see it being abrogated. If, as you gave the example, a high court can issue a warrant, a summons, not a warrant, and somebody whose duty, whose office is actually to uphold, that's what they do. His job is to oversee the observance of the law.
Yes.
Goes against it blatantly. Now, the lessons that are inherent there are many. And it brings to the fore just the level of disregard that those who are in leadership, because someone doesn't do that unless they know nothing will happen to me.
Impunity.
Yes. So it tells you, now, we have a duty ourselves. Do we want to put up with this any longer? Because if something that concerns you, the citizenry, is being treated in such a callous manner, it means it is you, the citizenry, who's being treated in that manner.
Exactly.
Now, is this something you're willing to put up with?
Definitely not. And that's why change must come. The law makes us equal. if others feel they're above the law. Wewe mwenyewe kazi yako, you operate through summons. You summon people to come to you.
Yes, you do.
To get statements, that's your job. And you are being summoned and you refuse to go. And what has happened to that guy?
He is the boss.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
I mean, you think this is a problem? There's a guy in Nakuru who led thugs. Yes, he's a police officer to go into War Memorial Hospital and remove the patients who are in beds. I mean, that one for me took people who are sick. You are removing them from their beds
and taking them where?
No, getting them out.
Getting them out of the hospital. You don't care where they go.
What?
Yes.
Yeah.
Really?
He was
How come I didn't see that?
He was summoned by the court.
Remember them War Memorial?
Yeah.
He was summoned. He also refused to go. You look at that and you wonder, what on earth are we seeing here?
I mean, that's just...
It's just going to the extremes.
Yeah.
When I was asking about who bears the responsibility to educate the citizens about the Constitution and particularly the Bill of Rights, is because many times when you think about rights, we look at rights from that historical perspective of what has been amplified before, in terms of state excesses, particularly in the enforcement of law and order, right? Arbitrary arrests, executions, kidnappings, abductions, and all those, and this and the other. But then we forget all these other rights that are contained in the Constitution.
Yeah.
For example, the economic and social rights.
Yes.
And today we were talking, yesterday was World Toilet Day. How many people in this country, in Nairobi alone, don't have access to toilet facilities?
Toilets, yeah.
It's a right in the Constitution. It's enshrined in the Constitution. We have signed SDGs. It's SDG number 6.
Yeah.
It's
Article 43 actually in the Constitution. Yeah.
Yes. We shall ensure people have access to sanitation and water by 2030. We are getting closer. We don't have that. If you think about the right to education, every child in this Kenya has a right to basic education.
Yeah.
How many children are actually enjoying the right to basic education? Was it yesterday again? We were reviewing a story in the Standard where 20% and above of those that sit KCPE do not end up in Form 4. Over 200,000
Wow.
of those that sit KCPE do not end up in KCSE.
I thought they said
4
the
years
transition...
It's 100%.
It's 100%. It's just the same way that education is free.
So there's 100%
They drop out
transition.
of school?
What happens to 200,000 in those 4 years into fourth form? What has happened to their right to basic education?
Yeah.
And what happened?
We don't talk about that.
What happened to free education?
We talk about right now the transition into CBC. Grade 7 spent an entire term last year without learning. They are going into grade 9. How do we know
Who makes up for that?
The kind of what happened to their right to basic education, right to accessing healthcare services? We don't even amplify those ones loudly enough. Right to a clean and safe environment. All these things are also other rights that are constitutionally guaranteed in the Constitution. But, they just appear like, it's one of those things. It's a government to see that you can get a right to representation.
Yes.
There are people who have gone for 2.5 years without representation in the National Assembly or in the County Assembly.
Right to have your case heard in court. There are people who are on remand.
Access to justice.
Access to justice is a
Article
right.
48, yeah.
There are people who've been on remand. No hearing, no charge.
Essentially, you've been forgotten.
You've been forgotten.
I was at industrial area remand prison yesterday. There's someone who's been there for 9 years. Remand. 9 years. Remand. Can you imagine that? On remand. And this is what we're saying. You see, an autocracy perpetuates impunity. So the police don't feel like they have to abide by the law. They don't feel like this is the court. I'll be jailed if I don't, respond to the summons. They know the person who is, me, the president is okay. I've talked to him. I don't need to go. Then you don't care. These are clear signs of an autocracy. If it's a democracy is governed by law. The law makes us all equal. No one is above the law, and we all respect the law. That's why law becomes extremely important, because whatever I get, he gets, she gets, and we are all the same. But ikiwa wewe unaona mimi regime policing, we don't respond to the law. We respond to an individual mwenye ametutuma, mwenye anatuambia. So nyinyi wengine, whatever you will say, however you will do it, shauri yenu. Mimi, as long as this guy, I'm okay with him. We can't use swear words and stuff like that. But hizo zingine zote, kaeni kando. That is a very dangerous trend. And yes, we acknowledge, and I agree with you that you can't compare yourself with, you have to compare yourself with the best.
Yes.
And Sisi, we are far from the best. We are far from the best, and we need to do quite a lot. Particularly, kuna, sectors kama za politics, sectors za security, we are doing extremely poorly. Socioeconomic, Article 43 of the Constitution. Kenyans, do they even know you have a right to emergency medical treatment? Leo hii ukikatwa bleeding profusely, ukimbia kwa hospitali wanakwambia deposit. Kwanza sijui ufanye hivi. I think it's Papa Shirandula who died akiwa anangoja kukua taken to hospital because the family at that time just rushed him to hospital siku za COVID. And these are basic rights, as you say. Basic rights, emergency medical treatment. Any hospital being put up should be able to address that. But it's not there. So I agree that we still have a lot of work to do. That's why we cannot relent.
Khalid, I feel very strongly that there's a power in speaking out some of these
Definitely.
things. I think the weakness lies in the apathy and keeping quiet. I think there's power untold in raising voices over these things over and over and over again until it takes on a sickly nature. However, who sets the tone? And I think it sounds like a really obvious question or even an obvious answer. But there has to be somebody setting the rhythm for some of these things to be done and done right. Who is that?
I think when it comes to human rights, it's clear. It should be the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, who are releasing, I think, a report today, if I'm not wrong, the state of human rights in the country. I think I saw something like that they would be doing that. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights is supposed to guide that discussion. But we know what is happening with most of these commissions, Latiff, that you mentioned. They're only getting administration costs, their salaries. They have zero money to do their work because they're funded by the state. So what the state wants to do is to tell people, go to IPOA. But IPOA can't even go to town, from their office to town. They're given money, salary, you're given rent so that you are there. But to go out and do the work, zero funds for programs. The same for the Kenya Human Rights Commission and others. You're just supposed to exist. You are there and people can be referred to you.
Say there's a commission.
Yes, but see kazi yetu, there's IPOA, ni kazi yao, they're investigating and all that. And this is what we're saying. I mean, things have to change. Things have to change. I'm very proud of the Gen Zs, what they've done, and they've showed people that actually we can demand for change and it can come. And we need to do more. And this time round, I believe it's everyone. It's Gen zote. Kuanzia ile ya kwanza hata sijui ilikuwa inaitwa aje, naambiwa zilianza 1920s sijui to what, I don't know, they're called boomers or I don't know what, but now we have to speak out. And I'm glad people like Khalef Khalifa, people like Willy Mutunga, I think I saw Kabando, the older generation, hata wao wanasema we are joining in this discussion. It has to be all of us.
Kabando yuko kwa hiyo age, usimgesha sana.
Sasa
Kabando is younger than CT.
I mean your benchmark.
Akina Khaminwa.
Hussein Khalid, thank you very much for joining
Thank
us.
you.
Hussein Khalid is CEO of Vocal Africa and a nominee for next week's Human Rights Defenders Awards.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.